This is KGW News at 11.
Good evening. We start with concern over Oregon's shrinking wildfire workforce. Good evening. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. Summer may be nearly upon us, but more and more federal firefighters are leaving their jobs, citing low pay, lack of benefits, and poor working conditions. Catherine Cook shows us how lawmakers are trying to stop the trend.
Today we are in Alaska at a small cabin in the middle of nowhere.
For Matt Monago, it's part of life as a hotshot wildland firefighter.
Without hotshots in America, I mean, dang, I would hate to see what the world would look like without hotshots, to be honest.
Monago is a captain with the Prineville Hotshots. He took these photos while fighting the Detroit Lake Fire 2 years ago. He thinks about what this summer will bring.
And we want to save as many properties and homes that we can do.
He also thinks about Oregon's wildfire workforce. Right now, 20% of its jobs are vacant.
We need young bodies to come out and get trained up and to be able to do this kind of work, and nobody wants to come out.
The problem is not lost on Oregon Senator Ron Wyden.
Oregonians were telling me last week, everywhere I went, that the shortage of permanent wildland fire positions, if not addressed, is on its way to becoming a four-alarmer.
Last week, Wyden asked U.S. Forest Chief Randy Moore about equipping Oregon with more funding, not only to hire more federal firefighters, but to keep others from leaving. Right now, starting wages run from $13 to $15 an hour.
I was told last week, if a firefighter in Oregon has a small family and a modest-sized roof over their head, it takes 4 paychecks to make a month's worth of rent.
Chief Moore says he hopes that will change, possibly through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that Congress passed in November. It includes $600 million for increasing firefighter wages.
It's dirty, nasty, hard work, and they do deserve better pay. They deserve better benefits.
Monago takes it all with a grain of salt.
Things can be better for sure. But as far as any one politician going to bat for us, I mean, I don't, not that sound bitter or mean. Like, it's going to take years for it to trickle down to where it needs to go.
Instead, he remains focused on what he's certain of. There will be fires, there will be structural threats, and as long as there are hotshots, there will be a response.
They're very good people. They're very nice people, and they will drop anything they're doing in their life to come to your community and put up a heck of a fight.
In Southwest Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
And we are thankful for them, too. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines, Portland Public Schools is banning concealed weapons on school campuses. The district's board approved the change last night. A new state law went into effect last September, allowing school districts to ban guns, even for someone with a concealed carry license. According to OPB, only about 13% of Oregon school districts have passed a ban.
The final 2 liberal members of Newburgh's school board have resigned. Rebecca Puros and Brandy Penner said they could no longer deal with the board's conservative majority. Penner pointed to what she called an abusive and disrespectful work environment. This comes just a few months after Ines Pena, another liberal board member, resigned. Now, Newburgh's school board has been mired in controversy, including a ban last August on Pride and Black Lives Matter displays in schools. That was later amended to all political displays.
Today, an FDA advisory committee endorsed COVID vaccines for children under 5. The panel recommended Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines for that age group, the only one not yet eligible for the vaccine. The decision will now go to the FDA, which is expected to grant emergency use authorization in the coming days. For Oregon and Washington, the Western States Advisory Group could give final approval as early as Saturday.
This evening, we want to take a closer look at an epidemic that is plaguing our friends, families, and neighbors. As wave after wave of fentanyl, a powerful and deadly man-made drug, floods our communities, it is claiming life after life, some as young as 16 years old. Now, you've likely heard the warning, one pill can kill. And tonight, one Portland mother wants you to hear something more, her son's name, in the hope that what came too late for her family might save yours. Here is Griffin's story.
He was extremely, extremely witty and funny. I mean, mature humor from the time he was like 5 or 6.
And by his sophomore year of high school, his mother says Griffin Hoffman had grown into a teenage tennis star, a young adult with a big heart who was still a kid at heart.
I miss every last thing about him. It's really difficult to talk about when you're talking about your son.
But Carrie Cohen wants the world to know about the anxiety Griffin suffered, like so many teens during the pandemic, experimenting with cannabis, then prescription pills.
I also had many conversations with him, and so did his dad, about the dangers. You know, he knew there are a few things you never ever do.
But it sounds like you wanted him to talk to you about all of this.
Definitely, and we made it very clear, like, you're not going to get in trouble. This is what it matters, is discussion.
Then, on a Monday morning in March, a school day, Griffin's father went to wake him up.
His dad threw open my bedroom door and said, "Carrie, get up. Something's wrong with Griffin." The first thing I saw was his hand, because his dad was holding it, trying to find a pulse, and there was no pulse. And it was just blue.
Did you already have a sense about what might have happened?
I figured in the beginning that he took something. He must have taken something and not known. And right away they found those blue pills.
Pills like these that Carrie would later find out looked like oxycodone, but were counterfeit, made with something 100 times stronger than morphine: fentanyl.
My kid wasn't an addict, you know? He was just doing normal experimentation like any other kid. He was just like a regular teenager. The fact that it happened to my kid is evidence that it could happen to anybody's kid in a lot of ways.
Investigators say they were able to trace back who those very pills came from a street dealer that handed them to Griffin, then up 2 levels, to a 24-year-old alleged drug trafficker they call a merchant of death. A federal indictment naming him as Manuel Antonio Souza Espinoza of Vancouver, caught in late March with this bag of fentanyl pills and a firearm, investigators say, during an operation with a lower-level dealer who cooperated. Espinoza facing 20 years to life, if convicted, court filings read, for selling fentanyl that resulted in the death of a child. The defendant's lawyer did not respond to a request for comment.
We asked the district attorney, who was the last person who knew what these things were and that they could that probably might kill. And they told us every last one.
Really?
Yeah.
Last year alone, we had 11 deaths in the state of Oregon from young people under the age of 18.
And while U.S. Attorney Scott Ospog declined to discuss the specifics of Griffin's case, the explosion in Oregon of the synthetic drug that's easier to transport and cheaper to make means his office is battling an epidemic.
We can't prosecute our way out of these cases. What's important is that kids understand, that young people understand, that what they're taking has the high potential to kill them.
Please make sure that you are not taking these pills. They are designed to look like oxy.
Which is why the principal at Griffin's school, McDaniel High in Northeast Portland, posted a plea a day after the 16-year-old died.
We're going to take the pills from you. We will not be asking any questions.
The grief is going to stay with us for a very long time.
What have you personally learned over the last few months?
It wasn't clear, the level of the danger and how prevalent they are and what our students potentially and what the community is potentially buying. If you're buying anything on the street, it's fentanyl.
And now it's much more clear.
Much more clear.
And that's in part due to a flurry of public health warnings issued to show, color aside, that prescription pills on the left here and counterfeit fentanyl on the right can look nearly identical, with experts pointing out it takes just a few grains, less than the tip of a pencil, to prove fatal.
When we're seeing people OD on half a pill, sometimes potentially even quarter of a pill.
And Lieutenant Chris Lindsay with Portland Police Narcotics and Organized Crime shows us
I mean, this is pretty typical for how it's all shipped up in bulk like this.
the surge has grown so great.
This section of this vault is dedicated exclusively to fentanyl storage.
In their secure drug vault, fentanyl has its own section.
These are counterfeit oxycodone pills.
And they're all marked evidence. They all say suspected fentanyl or fentanyl. There's a lot here. How many pills in here?
Probably hundreds of thousands.
Probably hundreds of thousands.
In 2021, Portland police say they secured over 300,000 confirmed or suspected fentanyl pills. In the first 5 months of this year, they've already brought in 90% of last year's totals, with teens an easy target.
Apps like Facebook, Snapchat, and Telegram are huge. We're seeing it on the dark web as well. This is very preliminary. We're starting to see them come in the form of counterfeit Xanax now. The little white Xanax bars. This stuff is dangerous. This is what it looks like, and it can kill you.
There's no redemption. I mean, the worst thing in the world happened to me. The worst thing in the world. That every parent's biggest fear is what happened.
The reality of her son's death still so raw, Carrie can't bear to look at pictures.
Yeah, I can't.
Instead, this mother finding her memories and comfort in an enduring symbol of his life.
I got a tattoo of a griffin to commemorate him. Yeah, my life pulse, you know. Had the biggest heart. I mean, he cared so much about people. That's what I want. I want people to remember his humor and his heart.
His humor and his heart, she says. And Griffin, by the way, is not the only one. Another student at the same high school also died from a counterfeit prescription pill, a fatal dose of fentanyl, less than 24 hours before he did.
It's just so heartbreaking. I have a lump in my throat just thinking about that. She can't even look at photos of her son. It's so painful. I can't even imagine. So what happens next? What is she hoping for?
You know, ultimately, I think Carrie wants to find meaning in Griffin's death, but right now she was pretty blunt. There isn't any. The alleged trafficker, by the way, who is charged in connection with his death, he's also now under investigation, court records say, for another fatal fentanyl overdose, an adult. He is due back in court next month. According to the U.S. attorney, nobody else has been charged or arrested in Griffin's death. So not only does Carrie Cohen want all of those responsible to be held accountable, what she says she wants most, even beyond showing remorse, she wants them to care.
Well, we all definitely